Coming up on today's Cleveland Browns report, we're going to talk about whether the Browns should stick with Nick Mullens after a hot-ish performance in Week 15 against the Raiders. We'll have a Myles Garrett injury update, plus we'll look at the Browns' playoff chances. All that's coming up on today's Browns report. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. To dive into these three news and rumor stories, we'll use this Bernie Heads meter. It's a scale of believability. So if I give it 0 Bernie Heads, it's fake news, not going to happen. And we'll go all the way to 4 Bernie Heads, believe land, you can take it to the bank. We'll have some fall in between as well. Before we get into the first story regarding Nick Mullens and Baker Mayfield, if you want free Browns content all year long, and then subscribe to the channel, okay? We're knocking on the door of 3,600 subs. We're just 42 away. What's the math right there? Less than that away? Yeah, 42 away. So help us get to that goal. Would really appreciate it. Do it for the holiday season. You know, it's a giving season. So subscribe today if you have not already. First story. Start Nick Mullens? No, fake news. When Baker Mayfield's off the COVID list, he's back on the field for a lot of reasons. One, he's a better quarterback than Nick Mullens. That should be the biggest one. There's a reason why Baker Mayfield is a starting quarterback and Nick Mullens is a practice squad guy. Now, I get it sometimes if the starting quarterback's in a bit of a slump, the backup gets a little hot. Sure, I can follow that train to a degree, but it does not go all the way to Nick Mullens, who, by the way, I want to give him a shout out because he played very well yesterday against the Raiders. For what you expected and asked out of him, he delivered 147 yards, a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over. And if DPJ catches that long ball in the first quarter, he's 21 for 30 for nearly 200 yards, and we may be having a very different conversation because even if that's only 3 points for the Browns, they're winning the football game if everything else follows suit. Meanwhile, Baker this year, not having a season to remember. In fact, it's a season he would like to forget. The injuries, the poor play, it all piling on top of each other. One of his worst seasons so far as a pro, if not the worst season so far. So 13 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Those aren't the numbers you want to see from someone you pick first overall, but Baker's got one more year left on his contract. We'll see if he can rebound the last couple weeks of the season and going into next year. I think Baker should start. I think it's a no-brainer. But if you want Nick Mullens to start, let me know down below. I'll make this the pinned comment. So if a YouTube ad break comes on by, scroll on down, BM for Baker or NM for Nick Mullens. Next story on today's show is Myles Garrett seriously hurt. Kind of got banged up at the end of the game. Missed some time sort of left and then came back in for the end, but didn't look like the Myles Garrett we all know him as. I'm giving this one Bernie Heads, okay? One Bernie Heads. Small shreds of truth. Not too much, but it's not fake news because he did leave the game for a little bit, came back in, and was clearly laboring, clearly not 100%. In Myles Garrett's post-game press conference, he said this. When asked about his groin injury, it's sore. I mean, everybody has to play through pain and injury. Everybody's dealing with something, so I don't feel sorry for myself, and I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. Here's my biggest takeaway on his groin injury. Look at Myles Garrett. Look at 95 getting up there, fingertips away from blocking this what was a go-ahead walk-off field goal from Daniel Carlson. If that's a groin injury and he's still able to get that high off the ground, it clearly isn't limiting him to a degree that he cannot play in Week 16 against the Packers. So with that being said, we all know 95 and love 95, but like this video if you think Myles Garrett is built different, because if you tweak your groin and you're still able to get a vertical like that and come just a couple fingertips and a hair away from blocking a game-winning field goal, yeah, you're playing a different game. You're playing chess. We're playing checkers. Before we get to the rest of the Myles Garrett injury news, look at this awesome beanie going on sale right now at Fanatics. It's 25% off, $22 when you go to chatsports.com/BrownsBeanie. Hook yourself up, hook a loved one up. You can't get it before Christmas. You wasted too much time there. But Harrison Graham here at Chat Sports has a little secret for you guys. Pull the old, blame it on FedEx or UPS. I ordered it 2 weeks ago. It got lost in the mail. No one can get mad at you then. Plus, Christmas just kind of runs a little longer. So get this deal right now at Fanatics. I'll have the link in the comments and the description of this video. Next story coming up here. Browns making the playoffs. One Bernie head. Yeah, playoffs. We talk about playoffs. If they had won yesterday, I'd be pretty much all in. I think they could have not ran the table and gone undefeated, but they would have had to do what they needed to do to get to 10 wins. It's just one. I originally had two, actually, but it's just you need too much help to happen. Before I show a way they could make the playoffs, do you think the Browns will make the playoffs? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no down below. I'm going to at least entertain a path for the Browns to reach the promised land for 2 straight seasons for the first time since the late 80s. Here's how the current playoff picture currently stands right now. All the AFC games are done for Week 15. A couple NFC matchups tonight, Tuesday, but that does not impact the Browns at all. There's Cleveland sitting behind a bunch of teams at 7-7, behind the Raiders, who they don't have the tiebreaker over, behind even Miami, who's won 6 straight. If the Browns want to somehow claw their way into the playoffs, I think it runs through the division, which sounds a little bizarre because usually you think the wild card's easier than division, and most times it is. But think about last year for the NFC East. You weren't going to make the playoffs in the NFC East, which was a horrible division, unless you somehow found a way to win the division, which Washington did at like 7-9. So for the Browns to make the playoffs, here's their upcoming schedule. They got to win out. There's really no other way. I don't think 9-8 can do it. So it's greens across the board because you got to win this one. You got to win at Green Bay on Christmas Day. You got to find a way to beat the Steelers at Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. And then you take care of business for the second straight time against the Bengals, this time at home. Look at the other teams in the NFC North, AFC North, and what their schedule is. The Bengals, realistically, 1-2. Lose to the Ravens, who have lost a couple in a row. Maybe they rebound at home because it's the NFL and they find a way to beat the Chiefs because, well, it's the NFL and the Lions just beat the Cardinals at home. And then they lose to the Browns on the road. So 1-2 is very much in the cards for Cincinnati. As for the Ravens, I had them getting a win against the Bengals, kind of ending that losing stretch. Lose to the Rams at home, which honestly, I think the Ravens do win that one because the Rams are not very tough, right? And the Ravens are. And then lose to the Steelers at home as well. And then finally, the Steelers schedule. Pick up a loss on the road in KC this upcoming week. They lose at home to the Browns. Sure, Cleveland gets the last laugh over Big Ben Roethlisberger in his final game against the Browns. And then they pick up a win against the Ravens because here's what that win against the Ravens would do. It would put the Browns in the big dance here. And if the Browns are able to knock off the Steelers, I beg your pardon, if the Steelers are able to knock off the Ravens, well, it would get them into the playoffs. We'll push this across right now because the projected standings for me, it looks something like this. Browns number 1 at 10-7. Bengals number 2 at 9-8. Then you have the Ravens 9-8 as well. That's why that Steelers win is so important. It knocks Baltimore out of the playoffs, and then the Steelers finish 8-1. On the right, that's their current record right now. So you can see where they stand right now and where they will end up at the end of the season. A lot needs to happen, okay? We'll keep our hopes up. We'll stay optimistic because it's Believeland, and we're not giving up on this team right now. But if it wasn't playoff mode before, it's really playoff mode now. It absolutely is win-out situation. 9-8 in the AFC, I don't think it gets you in. I can't picture a way it does. Maybe in the NFC, but I just don't see it getting it done in the AFC. To wrap up today's video, shout out your city below, all right? If you've gone this far, I know you're an OG Browns fan. I know you're a big fan of the Browns Report. So shout out your city below, and I'll give you a shout out on another show later on, let you know, let other Browns fans know where you are and where you're watching. Follow me on Twitter as well. I'm always tweeting out highlights of the game. So if you missed a play and you want to go see, for example, the JOK forced fumble or the Nick Chubb touchdown run, I got it on my Twitter right there, at Matthew Petey. Shoot me a follow. Browns fans help Browns fans. We'll see you guys later, and have a Merry Christmas.